And I just broke a string. That's genius.
Oh no! Go ahead and grab another one if you want to.
You're watching EVH and Gear TV, brought to you by Stewart Travel Guitars. See the incredible stowaway travel guitar at stewartguitars.com. Microphones for EVH and Gear TV are provided by Rode Microphones. And official Van Halen merchandise is provided by VanHalenStore.com. Here's your host from Ontario, Canada, EVH artist Eric Broadbent.
Hey everyone, it is the weekend. Welcome to EVH and Gear TV. We are live. Happy Good Friday to you all. We're live here and we're back with a guest that's long overdue for return, guitarist Blues Saraceno. Blues, how are you?
I'm doing quite well, thank you. I appreciate you guys giving me the time and having me on. Thank you.
It's great to have you back. And I think
I just broke a string, so here, hold on. I'm going to go radio silent. I'm going to go grab a string because I'm notorious for never changing my strings, and the guys at Ernie Ball get pissed at me if I don't. So I gotta go put a new string. So just tell a cool story. I'll literally be back in one
I will.
split.
I'll say hi to a bunch of cool people. This was so funny. We were both having technical difficulties before the show here, and he was just tuning his guitar and literally busted a string while we were talking. So let's go over and say hi to a whole bunch of people in the chat while we're waiting for Blues. We've got Brad Miller in the chat. Chlorine Baconskin is here. Terry Himes is here. Sending some positive well wishes for Eric Jr. He's not feeling the best today. Brian Cote is here. Guitar Wayno is here. Chris Bevan is here. My beautiful Nocturnal Butterfly. Carlo Santin. Howdy, folks. Happy Easter to all my Christian friends out there. Right back to you. Brad Miller, let me see here, talking about some guitars. Scroll down. Jason Wade is here. Hey, everybody. Ready to talk guitar and gear for sure. Scott Connor. Let me see. Christopher Miles is here. Nice to see you, Chris. Really nice to have you tuning in. Let me see here. Continue down the chat. Chlorine Baconskin, I bought one of those 7-watt Katana amps. Great little amp that weighs nothing, so easy to move around. Yeah, the portable, those are really, really nice. Joe Bentavenia from Yamaha Guitar Group is here. Joe, thanks so much for tuning in, man. I appreciate that immensely. Let me see there. And Chlorine Bacon is saying he loves the stack in the back. Quentin James is here. Janice Lala is here, saying hi, she can't stay, but just checking in. And Timothy DePaul is here. So, yeah, it's so funny. You know, I was telling Blues off the air, I was having all these technical problems over the past little bit. I had to cancel 2 different guests over the past week because of internet issues. That's working now. Knock on wood or knock on my forehead. And then moments before going live, I had webcam issues. So Blues can't even see me at the moment. And I'm hoping the webcam issues are all okay on the audience end. But something else that's kind of changed for the two of us, since it's been a year and 2 months since Blues has been here,
Yeah.
My hair has grown and I'm missing a mustache now. What's with this new look?
You know, it's been an interesting year, and we needed to commemorate the year properly. So it just, my kids think I look like one of the extras from that TV show, The Mayans.
Okay, yes.
So we'll see. We'll see if it makes it through the summer. You know, I've never gone full beard in the summer, so we'll see. But I kind of like it. It's just funny because the people that I've dealt with in the past have they have no idea. I went to go play a show live, and literally as I was walking the stage, the guys in the band were like, "What's the deal?" Because we just show up and play. We don't rehearse or anything like that. And it was just funny to have that moment and realize that not a single person there realized it was me, which was kind of funny. So I'm actually thoroughly entertained by it at the moment.
That's awesome. Like we were saying off the air, it's kind of like you have your own little incognito outfit you can kind of hide behind a little bit.
Yeah, it's great. And like, let's put it in perspective. It's not like there's throngs of people camped out on the doorstep. It's not like that. But it's just nice to I don't know. Yeah, also I think it's just nice to try something different. For me, I get, as we talked about before. We were talking about kind of like almost like a lot of people continue to live in the past, and that just drives me banana pants. I can't do that. It's a weird thing. It's kind of sad and depressing.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm definitely, and it's funny as you get older, and you realize things about yourself, and you got to know who you are in this lifetime. And I am definitely not a person that can stay. I'm just not a person that kind of stays stagnant. I think the thrill. I think life is amazing and exciting, and there's a lot of not great out there, of course, but there's also a lot of exciting stuff that I'm into. So I think going out and doing things and just kind of continually trying to evolve is as I get older is really important to me. So I like having a different look and doing different things and not revisiting old jokes. I mean, I think jokes are kind of like that. Like, it's like I watch the, comedians on, whatever, streaming or whatever. And, when you watch the first time, it's really funny. The second time, it's never quite as good. So I think the true comedians kind of keep you laughing as you go on through the journey. And so that's the challenge for me, at least so that's the philosophical issue with the beard at the moment. But I will say I'm jealous of your lustrous locks. They look, if I could grow them like that, I would, but it's just not, it's not in the table at the moment. So you get this. Otherwise you get a lot of facial state coming at you. So,
well, I almost didn't go through the phase again because I was starting to grow it back and I went through what it's been. You've had short hair, long hair and everywhere in between before, but you go through that awkward stage. And that awkward stage is that thing where like it's a fine line. You can either say screw it and you stop. And I made it through, and that was a hard stage again, to get through. But here it is. But I'm not going to stay this way forever. It's just it's a temporary thing, I think.
Do it, man. Get your inner Fabio going, Fabio, whatever. You got to do one of those you should do a mock-up for the EVH logo. You should make it look like one of those romance novels.
Oh, there you go.
The guy with the long hair and the open shirt. I'm telling you, you got to go with. You got to play to your crowd, man.
All right. Well, and if anyone blames me, I'll say, here's Blues' phone number. You can get hold of him. Blame him.
I'll totally take the hit. It's fine.
All right, no problem.
Because that's what a bunch of guys want to see is a Harlequin romance novel thing would be great. So I say.
I'll save that for the bottom of the list for content, but I'll make sure I credit you if that does happen.
I can hear people clicking off as we.
Yeah, exactly. The numbers just went right down. Yeah, they don't want to think of Harlequin. Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
Let's talk about this for a second. This is something that I'm surprised I did not know about. I'm one of these guys. I'm honest on my shows every time. If I don't know about something, I'm not going to say, "Oh yeah, I heard about that," and "Oh, I know this," and I know every guest I have. I say, "Oh, I know their whole catalog and their backstory." No, I don't. I know a certain amount about you, and there's lots I don't know about you. But something I didn't know, and I'm embarrassed to say the fact I didn't. But this biggest band in the world project, that's something pretty damn cool. And I was listening to their track today, the Down to the Water, and loved it. But for some of the people who either didn't see, well, we didn't talk about this in the last interview anyways, because I didn't know about it. But can you share with us what that's about and how that came about?
Yeah, it's as we, like I said, because we talked before these, so it's interesting how I guess in tuning on, like I get it. Like obviously people are very aware of like the guitar, that kind of like, I guess it was kind of like a 10-year run or however long it was when guitar was kind of was just very in vogue, and I was definitely, really pursuing it, and so there was a lot of coverage on it, and so I made these solo records, and they were packaged. It was a nice, neat package to go straight to guitar players, and it was like getting that perfect shot of coffee in the morning if that's what you desired. So I get why people responded the way they did. I mean, it was, and I get why people keep asking to do more, but the crazy part is I've done so much more stuff and continue to do so much more stuff that it would almost be like going back to like junior high. It's a weird thing. So part of that moving forward is actually the fact that I do all the television and film stuff, and we have, and I even play live. But what we ended up doing was, because I deal with this company, Extreme Music. They're definitely, as a matter of fact, it's pretty much exclusively who I work with, to be honest with you. And it's actually by choice.
Nice.
It's not like, it's funny. It's not like, I have a contract and I have to only deal with them. I actually started working with them way, like almost 18 years ago, I want to say, or something like that. And it just kind of grew into like a real deal, legit, great working relationship. And as the company grew, I grew with it. And so I would, once we kind of started getting a lot of traction, I started getting a lot of placements. I started getting approached by other companies as well. And I always ended up turning them down because I just, they always kind of, they always just made it work. I always had, more than enough work I could do with, and I really just enjoyed working with that company. And so as the years grew, my relationship kept growing, and it would keep, just getting better and better. And so at one point, they asked me to come down and say, hey, you should, we're going to kind of put kind of like an office band together, but we're going to have some composers as well. And at first you're like, yeesh, here we go, man. This is going to turn into a bad NAMM show experience real quick, you know? But it ultimately, I went down there and I just really got along really well with everybody, and the players they had were great. And so that kind of became ultimately kind of like a little project that we started working with. And so as time went on, we kind of were sitting there going, well, hey, we play like these shows. We play like Halloween shows. We'd learn a bunch of tunes, and we'd get dressed up in these crazy outfits and do this weird stuff, and it was fun. But over time, I'm sitting there with the VP of sales, this guy Rob Smith, and I'm listening to him sing, and this guy's a crushing, he's like a crushing, almost like metal / punk rock singer, which is actually interesting because those sometimes are actually the hardest singers to find. Like like I really specifically try and find really authentic people to the source. Meaning, if you're going to do if I'm going to track a blues record, I'm not miking every drum on the kit.
No, we want a room sound.
Guy. We're going to put a couple couple ribbon mics in the room, and that's going to be the sound. That's my particular preferred style of tracking that stuff. I don't like when everything's all hi-fi sounding for that type of genre. It's just not what I like. Not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just not my cup of tea.
Doesn't please your ears.
Yeah, I kind of like part of the charm. Like if you want to hear a record, if you want to hear a record that I like, that I think is a great blues record, listen to the James Cotton 100% Cotton. Like everything about that record works for me. It's not about the guitar playing. It's just the way it's recorded, the way it is. It's just legit. It's a perfect photograph of that time, of that project. And to me, that's what I like. I don't like listening to, the super hi-fi, the guy with the rototoms all mic'd up and the China cymbal. And, that's just not for me, for that genre. So anyways, to drag the story on, singers are that's kind of the make or break it, especially with what I do. To make a instrumental track is one thing, but to really get a good singer can really kind of help sell it. So trying to find like punk rock singers or really rock guys, even rap guys, like to get a really legit rap guy with a solid flow is not, everybody thinks they can rap.
Yeah.
But it's not really the case. And to be honest with you, even with country singers, like I'm not talking like what people call country today. I'm talking like the real deal OG country guys. Like
sure.
That's a thing, man. And you either got it or you don't. And, I got 15 guys right now in my Rolodex or digital, whatever, iPhone, whatever the kids are using these days. But they're all great singers. They're all great, but they're not that, you know what I mean? So it's really just finding the right tool for the right job. So anyways, the biggest band in the world came out of, we were doing these kind of like these like fun gigs that were kind of fun. We dress up as the Village People and go play like these super, like, Rage Against the Machines type stuff. And they'd let me go completely crazy. I could go out there and it was like 1992 all over again. And I'm like, am I playing too much? And they're like, no, play more. I'm like, great. They did say I was playing too loud, but
okay.
Anyways, we did all, so we did that. And then finally we got to the point where, I'm like, well, we've got this talent in the room. We should actually, we should make tracks that, kind of should go in the catalog. And because everybody does it all day, every day, it's kind of like just building the ultimate, predator for what you need to get done. You know what I mean?
Right.
So we had the singer, and originally we had two singers. We had a guy, Rob Smith, which did a lot of the punky kind of, and then we had this guy, TJ Stafford, who's also an artist and a composer for Extreme. And he's got a real high voice, and he can really, they just had two complementary, they were kind of, not, I wouldn't say similar, but not opposing either. They were just very complementary styles. So what worked out really well was that between the two of them, we could cover a lot of different territory,
gotcha.
Which was nice. And it was always authentic. We'd have, TJ could do these really, barreling high stuff, and he could scream and go crazy too. But then you'd have Rob who could, sit there and really just grind out a, really legit metal track, and so we ended up kind of just deciding, and what ended up happening was Russell Emanuel, who is the CEO of Extreme Music. He was handling all the bass duties, and he had the name. So he's like, we should do, no one calls their band the biggest band in the world. And he came up with the name. And from there, it kind of just became a thing. And so we started kind of making it a project. And it's kind of like this little side project that we do. So for anybody that's interested, and the crazy part is I go pretty bananas on the guitars. I mean, it's like a legit real deal rock record. Like if I were in any rock band, if I were in Guns N' Roses, I would play the guitars exactly as I do with that project. So for those of you that are just, surfing the internet, that wants to, you can go over to extrememusic.com and punch in either my name and you'll see a bunch of tracks come up, or search for the biggest band in the world.
And that's kind of good too, because that's, people might type that in as a key phrase sometimes, biggest band in the world, who is it, right? And that comes up, so that's cool. But one track I listened to today, it was on the Extreme Music YouTube page, and I think we have that link below. We've got a lot of your links right now in the description, plus my better half Nocturnal sharing links all throughout the program here as well too, so we'll get people there for sure. But I think it was the Down to the Water song. And actually your rhythm is like laid back, simple, and it's really nice, like just a hint of gain. When I'm detecting, and
we go for. I mean, they're made. I mean, you got to realize we make records. I mean, that's really the deal. Even though it's technically catalog stuff. I mean, it is approached and it is. It's made. As a matter of fact, we had a friend of mine, Ross Hogarth, mixed it.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I think on some of the earlier, on the first, there's two projects, there's two records. I think on the first one, we tracked it to Village, and Ross did the engineering and the mixing on that. And then on the second one, we tracked it at Apogee Studios, and a gentleman named Sergio, I don't want to mess his name up, Sergio Ruelas or Reles.
Okay, Sergio, we'll say Sergio. It's all good.
Yeah, and then Ross mixed it. So, we got the guy that's, he's doing Keith Urban on Tuesday and he's mixing us on Wednesday. It's a good deal.
Yeah, it sure is.
Because I've said this before, as far as I've worked with a lot of producers in Los Angeles, and I'd like to think I've worked with a solid chunk of them for sure, and a lot of engineers, and there's a lot of talented out there. But he is definitely on that. He is on that upper echelon of talent. I mean, it's like this. Like, I would sit. I used to sit in on the mix sessions because I was such a control freak and it had to be a certain way.
Yeah.
And I would watch him, and he was so good at it that I honestly couldn't really pick anything up. That's crazy. You know what I mean? Like it was one of those. Every now and then you run across certain people where you're like, all right, you're good. Tag, you're it. Like if he's flying the plane, I'm going to go sleep in the back. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of the deal.
Comfort zone.
So, yeah, so and I don't say that lightly. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't say that about very many people that I've worked with, and I've had a pretty long career of doing that. But yeah, Ross Hogarth's talent set is pretty brutal. So anybody that gets a chance to work with him, it's worth it just to see how it's done. And I like working with people at that caliber because it forces me to keep my game on. That's why I like the whole extreme camp. You'll notice there's no there's no low hanging fruit over there. They keep it pretty trim.
Now, when you started with the Extreme company, were they a smaller company to start with, or did you get under the ground floor with them, or were they kind of established at the time, and how did that work out?
Well, they initially, they were a smaller company. They were owned by these two. Originally, it was these two English guys, Russell Emanuel and a guy named Dolph Taylor, and they initially. I actually got in because they went up to my friend Dweezil, and they initially wanted to do some licensing of his father's work, and that didn't happen. Mm-hmm. Then they, of course, had heard Dweezil stuff, and they're like, they look for. They were very smart about how they did it because, which is an interesting conversation, even just production music in general, because not a lot of people talk about it, and not a lot of people know about it. It feels like it's a bit of a boys' club, but even though I don't necessarily know if that's the case, but not a lot of people know a lot of information about it, but. In short, my entry into it was via Dweezil. They approached him because they'd heard his stuff, and they were like, man, and they're very smart about how they did it. Both Dolph and Russell at the time were what they did is they would seek out people that really specialized in, for example, they wouldn't have a country guy trying to do the rock. That's the worst.
Yeah.
It's like there's nothing worse than a jazzer that tries the rocks. Or a rocker that tries to play jazz.
Sure.
I don't know which one's worse, but I think everybody can agree. Even though they can both technically do it, it's just
you can see through it. You can see through it. You can hear through it.
Yeah, it's pretty transparent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they were very clever about how they would really seek out. So they went up to Dweezil and they said, "Hey, they brought him in on this project, and they wanted him to do a bunch of tracks, and I think he got into it and realized, hey, this would be more fun if I brought, because he and I, we would always kind of, work on little things here and there. But he's like, we should work on this together. And we're like, yeah. I was like, that sounds like fun. Let's do it. So initially what happened was he said, hey, we've got like 10 tracks to do. And I said, all right, we'll work on some. And then he got busy because he always, people are always asking him to do stuff. He's, he's in demand, So I think this was right around, and I could be kind of off. You'd have to ask him, but this was right. I think I remember talking to him. He's saying, hey, I want to go out and take my dad's material and bring it to a whole new generation. That was like a big thing for him. And he was super hyped on it. And I think once he kind of got that in his mind, which is a side note, he literally, you got to ask him this thing, but he literally took almost like a year off and totally retaught himself how to play guitar so he could do things.
Wow.
In his dad's compositions that technically weren't even made for guitar. And I remember thinking what, it was so crazy because, we were just guys that would hang out and goof around, play Van Halen stuff and thought it was funny. And we were totally about the rock and stuff like that. And I literally, he's very disciplined, I think, in nature. I think he would agree with that. So he literally stopped and retaught himself, started relearning ways to pick. Mm-hmm. So he could do alternate pick. And this was way before the whole internet, Instagram, and everybody was hybrid picking and all that stuff. I remember he was he was telling me, we were talking about Frank and Bali and all these guys that had really particular picking techniques. And I remember him sitting there showing me this stuff. And I'm thinking, you're nuts, dude. What are you doing? And I remember giving him the hardest time about it. And so in the beginning, I was just giving him the hardest time. I'm like, whatever, this is ridiculous. And then it started to kind of gain traction. And all of a sudden he was doing stuff. And he's like, let me show it to you. And he'd try and show it to me. I'm like, yeah, that doesn't, I don't, what? No, because he figured out a way to do it. And so it was interesting. So right around this time, he literally stopped. He just stopped everything and he
reinvented himself.
Yeah, but a legit, not just found religion for a month or something like that. Literally figured it out, and it was kind of, it was kind of interesting watching him go through the process, and then it was almost like watching time lapse photography. He could start doing stuff, and I was like, holy smokes, and he would kind of, and then it became funny, and then it just became silly. Then he kind of got to a point where he just you could see the momentum ramping up, and then it just hit that point where it's okay, he's on to something completely different. It was one of those moments where you're like, ooh, I'm out. You know what I mean? I can't do that. No, this is no longer something in my wheelhouse. It now has gone to a different thing. And then when you see it applied to his dad's material, you were like, oh, I get it now. So anyways, because you realize this whole interview will just be a series of sidetracked ramblings.
It's all good, man. It's all
get
good.
Ready.
That's good.
So anyways, so to bring it back, I wanted to bring it back to the whole catalog thing. We started working on these songs, and we had, they give you deadlines okay, we need, and they were kind of themed. I think the early ones were skate punk and really, it was kind of really almost super heavy guitar heavy. Because, of course they realized, that he was known for the guitar stuff. And then he went to them and says, hey, listen, can I bring in a friend of mine? I think he'd be a good fit for this. And they're like, all right, but it's on you. If it bombs, you got to make up the difference. He's like, no, it'll be good. So we went in and with the intention of kind of doing everything kind of we were going to do a record together. And then he just got busy. You know what I mean? He was doing stuff, and he had a bunch of stuff going on, and the times were kind of coming close. So I said, hey, listen, I'm just going to start moving ahead on stuff, and then we'll just meet up towards the end and we'll see what we can figure out. And he's like, yeah, that makes good sense. And so I ended up doing 4 of them. And then I think we worked together on one we kind of, but even then it was kind of I had an idea, he had an idea. We just, at that point, I want to say I remember I remember the deadline was kind of a thing, we had to get it done.
Right.
So anyways, I take him, I hand him in to the guys at Extreme, and Dweezil finishes he did his later, and I think, yeah, he did his, because he was working out of a different studio and I was working out of my studio. So anyways, I went to them, they handed it, and I got a call. They're like, wow, this is really good. They liked both of the stuff that we did. They were really happy with. And they said, will you guys do more for us? And Dweezil's like, dude, I'm kind of, I think at that point, I want to think, and like I said, I'm getting older, so I don't know how accurate my memory is. He'd probably remember it better, but I'm pretty sure around that time he was pretty full force into, really the reinvention thing and doing his dad's material and learning all that stuff. And it was really intense. He would spend 14 hours a day, learning stuff like crazy. And And I didn't. I was like 14 hours. Oh, heck no, that's
No.
not happening, you know? So anyways, I went back to him and says, hey, they want to do more stuff. Do you want to do it? He's like, I don't really have the time. I'm like, well, do you mind if I just take it and run with it? Because I kind of feel like it's a good fit. And he was like, yeah, no, totally. And so he still continued to do stuff with them as well, but more on his schedule. And then I slowly started kind of ramping up. And the crazy part is that this was still early, like catalog music or, you know, music, house music, I don't know, whatever term you want to use. It's basically licensing. You go,
Right.
you know, if you want, like, for example, let's say you want a track, I don't know, let's say, you know, the Black Keys have a track and it's awesome, but it's kind of a movement. People are hot on it, but they're, you know, to license the Black Keys is going to be a pretty penny, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll come to me and say, hey, listen, we like that Black Keys genre. We like that real gutsy, kind of real raw, you know, garage rock thing, you know, like the whole White Stripes, Jack White, whatever it is. You know, the problem is, you kind of need stuff in that vein, but you kind of want to make it more towards selling stuff, for lack of a better term. Meaning, you know, if I write a song called, man, this is the worst possible thing that could ever happen to me, and I want to kill myself, we're not going to get much traction with that.
No,
you know what I mean?
no.
Like it's not, you know, it may be a cool like indie track, but it's not going to. No one wants to put that on TV. So the challenge was basically kind of like trying to fit a genre, keep it authentic, like really cool and authentic, you know, and yet have it be applicable to enough situations to where people would want to use it. You know what I mean? For example, so in the crazy part, and not a lot of people get this, but like, for example, I'll take you through it kind of quickly, but so I started slowly ramping up with them, doing stuff. And they always would call me for like the crazy guitar stuff. They wanted like the hard rock stuff, the heavy stuff, the stoner stuff, you know, the aggressive rock, the southern rock, all the stuff that really, and I was like, no problem. You know, it was right. All that stuff was in my wheelhouse. It came natural. They didn't call me to do, you know, I wasn't going to do orchestra stuff. Not that I couldn't. I mean, I do it. It's fine. It comes out really good, actually. But what takes me 10 hours is going to take somebody else, honestly, 2 hours. Mm-hmm. And my orchestra stuff it's really good, but there's definitely stuff that do it considerably better, you know? So it just got down to the point where, you know, I knew, you know, I wasn't going to try and, you know, there's guys that literally live in that world, you know, they have the gear there. That's what they do. And so, you know, they were just better at it and quicker. So I just wasn't, and honestly, it's not my thing. I don't get it. I'm not excited about it. And I felt, because I wasn't excited about it, I felt it showed in the end product.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to, you know, and to be real honest with anybody, I mean, you know, to try and make a living, I mean, I give a tip of the hat to anybody, whether I like your content or not. If you're making a living as a musician, you know, the golf clap to you, my friend, you know, because it is a step away from impossible to do it. And, you know, it's a rough grind. And so if you're going to be sitting there in the room, you know, sometimes I'm literally not kidding you. I'm putting out 14-hour day, you know, easily, you know what I mean? Easily, you know, and that's a grind. You do 4 or 5 of those in a row, call me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So to be sitting there doing something I'm just disingenuous about, now it just feels like I've got a gig, and you know, and I don't want that. I want to be into it, you know? And so, there just comes times where, you know, in your life where you just have to balance everything. And for me, you're always balancing the survival aspect, meaning making money, keeping, you know, paying mortgages, paying health insurance, paying, you know, my kids need braces, you know, whatever, the car needs tires, there's that element of, you know, and then there's also hey, do I really want to be doing this? You know what I mean? And so you just try and find that balance. And that's kind of in essence what I'm trying to do. And that's, I think, what anybody's trying to do, even the most famous of famous. I mean, they're in some level, it's just a kind of a balance of that. So
agreed.
For me, I kind of was digging doing the catalog stuff. I love the challenge. I love they'd call me and say, okay, here's the deal. We've got something. We're going to do some some indie disco. I was like, yeah, indie disco. I kind of dig disco. Let's make it kind of indie rock. Let's find out what works. Are some crunchy guitars going to work over that cool, you know, 120 BPM upbeat? Like, let's see if it works. And how do you find it? And so for me, the challenge was, I kind of felt in some regards like it was kind of like the Wild West. Like, I don't feel like anyone had really staked a claim yet.
Sure.
You know, yes, there were guys that were incredibly successful and had done well, but they weren't really doing great stuff, in my opinion. Like, you know, like to me, it's I always kind of like to be, to me, I guess the drug for me at this point, is besides the paycheck, because let's be honest about it, there is,
of course,
let's keep the money straight. But there is that aspect. So of course, because, let me tell you, it's a good feeling when you hit the mailbox and you're like, boom, all right, great. That's going to work out well. I like that.
Yeah.
That's a good feeling. And anyone that tells you otherwise is lying. But for me, the drug truly at this point is kind of like doing that piece and you're like, yep, that's legit. That's good. And you hear it on TV. I'm sitting there listening. I'm like, watching, The Walking Dead, and Rick Grimes just took an arrow to the shoulder. Oh, this is awesome. Is he going to die? And then boom, your material kicks on. You're like, oh,
I know.
That's serious. You know what I mean? And then, your kids are watching it and you're like, dude, that right there is paying for soccer lessons. What's up? And, that to me is the drug at this point, to keep moving forward. Otherwise, it's just a job. And at that point, I would really just look at my life in general and be like, all right, how much do I want to work? My kids are growing up. How much time do I want to put in? Otherwise, you're just a 9-to-5er. I'm just another guy. I don't want to have, how many people are watching this realizing, damn, I'm that guy on the freeway, sitting in traffic, grinding it out, going to work.
Punching the card, punch the time clock, and you get to work, and just like a machine every day.
Yeah, to do what? To get fatter, get balder. It's like I don't know, man. I would really like to try and find my happiness in between the lines if possible. I've kind of been very fortunate as an artist, and I've been able to not have to fish on the weekends. If that makes any sense.
No, that does for sure.
That's rare. I mean, that's really rare, and I'm good with being the guy that I don't need to be the next Shakira. I'm good with it. I've had my moment in the sun more than I've cared to have, to be honest with you. As a matter of fact, for me, every time I got to that point, it always left me like I'm just disillusioned. Like this is not what I thought it was. And everybody kind of has to get there on their own. Some people love it. Some people live for it. Some people, that's all they got. You know what I mean? And that's their world.
That's all they know sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. Some people, it didn't, I never equated my self-worth with my accomplishments in that regard. I kind of felt like I had more layers to that onion, but that's my story. I don't know if the next person's is like that. And so for me, and I've definitely got to dance at the big table,
You did.
Many a times in many different ways. And it just kind of became a variation of the same theme, and I got it. And it's a trade-off. So, being a John Mayer has its, it's a heavy crown to wear too.
Yeah.
In some regards.
Jump on a masa and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I haven't walked in his shoes, so I can't tell you all the pros or cons. But I've seen glimpses of different elements of that throughout my career, and all I'm saying is that it doesn't come without its price. It's like, I have friends of mine. They go on the road, and they're always like, they're on the road. So they're always in guitar shops and they're always finding the cool gear. And it's like, I have zero zilch time to do any of that stuff. That is not even, if you look at my pie chart, it's on there, and sometimes I'm like, oh man, look, they're buying all this stuff. And that, I've got friends that have like this, they love to just collect a bunch of stuff and they're into it. But part of me is like, good for them. They're the ones that have to get in the airplane. They're the ones, every time it's wheels up, they're taking a chance. Hope that thing lands. You know what I mean? Yeah. They're the ones on the tour bus. They're the ones that are grinding out. They're the ones that are away from their families. They're the ones that, when their kid's got a fever of 102, and their wife's sitting there crying on the phone, they're the ones from the middle of nowhere trying to police the situation. That's a rough spot to be too. So they can have all the spoils because they're earning them. I really feel that's the case. I've never ever begrudged anybody their success because in their own way, they are putting their time in, and so I'm good with mine. I like the fact that, I can come home and, we just had a funeral for my kid's earbud because I thought that was hilarious. They had what do they call it? Earbuds, AirPods? I don't know what they're called. Whatever
AirPods, I think.
My oldest kid, it fell out of her thing and she, it got run over. And so my youngest one was like, shows up, Daddy, we're doing a funeral for us. So we all, we're sitting there at 3:00 in the afternoon, dressed in black, giving, the last rites to the broken thing. I thought that was awesome. That was worth any 59 Les Paul on the planet because to me, I just thought it was I thought it was funny that my kid thought of it, and two, I thought it was funny looking over, seeing my oldest kid just all pissy about it because her ear pod got blasted out because she dropped it, and I just thought that was a great moment in time. You know what I mean? So for me, I don't know, maybe I'm just a simple guy, but I like that stuff. So, but anyways, to digress. So with the music catalog, I started doing it, and they grew. So they were just two English guys, and they got bought out by Viacom. Then Sony bought them out, and then it got rebought, and so in essence, then the company, the one of the guys left, and the CEO is Russell Emanuel, and he's the guy running the show. He's kind of like the Rick Rubin of the catalog world, and he's a wild fellow. We get along famously because he's super clever and ridiculously outrageous at the same time. So, it's a good fit for us because no matter what stunt I pulled, it was always met with an equal or greater stunt, and I've been known to pull crazy stuff. So it was kind of like, think about this. Can you imagine? Now, let me preface this by saying you've got to be top of your game. If you're not top of your game, you won't even, you don't get a parking space. But if you're top of your game, like how crazy, I honestly believe if I showed up completely almost incoherent, out of my mind, as long as the job got done, I think they'd be okay with it. In some weird way, I think they'd be yep, okay. As long as, it's all business, it's got to get done. As long as it got done, I think they'd, I know we just came back from England. We played a show in England. One of the art guys, got crazy drunk out of their mind, destroyed the whole room, threw up everywhere,
oh, no.
But made it to the job and got the job done. And guy's a great art guy. He's still working, so that's how crazy that scenario is in its own way. And so for me, as they grew, so what happened was they were ultimately very small, and they still are a very small company in comparison to other catalog companies. They have their amount of tracks is exceptionally small compared to the big boys, but their stuff is by far the best out there. It's not even a question.
That's good to know.
So it becomes a quality versus quantity thing.
Yes.
For me, that just happened to feed into my nature. I need the challenge. The drug for me is to I put the requirements on myself. I could probably put out about 10 times more content. And maybe most people would think it's actually more than fine, but I'm nah, I already did that. I'm the guy that comes up with the I'll give you an example. And then to backtrack even a hair bit more, we kind of in our own way would kind of create the genre, meaning this, the catalog, everybody was just doing real quick, real cheap stuff. And so it kind of was cheap. No one liked it. I mean, they would get used because it was, you'd pay 10 cents on the dollar compared to the big boys, but no one was excited about it. Then, Extreme kind of comes along. In their field, I can only talk for the field that I was responsible for, more the rock stuff. But I came from a record making background. I was a guy that made records. I was a session guy. I was a production guy. I was actually producing records for the longest time. So they came to me and says, hey, you've got the guitar skill set. We're good with that. And then you've got this production skill set. So let's just make records. And so we were handing stuff in when everybody was just trying to bang out tracks on their laptop. We were making records. Theirs sounded like this, and ours sounded like that. And they're sitting there using whatever, some cheap little thing, and I've got full. I've got the real deal stuff through all the real deal gear. I've got guys like Ross Hogarth mixing the stuff. You know what I mean? And so he just mixed Van Halen's last record. And he's mixing, and so the bottom line is everything becomes fairly comparable at that point. You know what I mean? So what happened was we kind of started becoming the tide to follow, if that makes sense. And so, in all honesty, we kind of created, for example, that whole dark country thing came about. That was Russell and myself going, hey, listen, man, everybody loves that Johnny Cash Ain't No Grave, man. That's a big one, boy. We could license that all day long. So we just would kind of start spitballing. And I was like, well, listen, why don't we just take that and kick that up a notch? And so we would kind of start making stuff kind of in that world that kind of would fit. So in essence, think of it like this. You want you want that Johnny Cash thing, but you need it to kind of also fit what you're doing. So it's kind of like, I don't know. It's like seeing a suit that looks really great on your favorite person and saying, I want that suit, but you need the suit to fit you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's kind of what we would in essence do. We would try and create a suit that was, in our efforts equal. It's like, once again, you're never going to be, there's only one Eddie Van Halen. There just is. Everybody will spend their lifetime trying to copy it, and they're wasting their breath. There's no point, because there's just one. I think if you're smart about it, you'll go, okay, that's his skill set. That's what he does. This is my skill set. Let me do what I do best. And yes, you can tip your hat or nod to it, but in essence, you're never going to touch what that guy can do. You just can't. You're never going to touch the Jimi Hendrix or the Beatles or the Zeppelins, or you're setting yourself up for failure.
That's
on that regard. But it doesn't mean you can't figure out what the essence, what I liked about the Van Halen was the cool swing, was that guitar sound, was it was a blues based, ZZ Top on steroids flavor, but yet he had the technical prowess to back it. Yet the technical prowess, even though I think initially for me was the cherry on, I would say was the initial grabber, if that makes sense. That was the cute girl, like, woo, oh wow, hey, nice to meet you. And then his musicality was the great personality. That went from being a girlfriend to a wife. Do you know what I mean? If that makes sense, you know what I mean? So for me, that was kind of what grabbed it. So in essence, it's those things about him that I like that I tried to incorporate in my stuff. I was kind of like, because I knew I was never going to be able to do what he could do, but I could incorporate elements of that. So that, in essence, I would grab that from him. I would say, okay, I liked the fact that he, had such a swingy feel to his stuff. Like no one ever swings that. They always play it real stiff. Like he almost played that. He always played like around it was always kind of loosey-goosey, but not loose. You know what I mean? He always, he would, he just would like, it was like, the second you heard that, you were like, okay, cool, I get it. He played, it was tight but loose at the same time, if that makes sense. And you can't copy that,
No.
But you can kind of figure, I liked that element, so I would just incorporate that to mine, and then I figured, okay, so to bring it full circle, what we would do with the catalog stuff is we would try and kind of do that as well. Like the whole point was not to copy something. The whole point was to take something and use it as a jumping off point and figure out, okay, like I definitely feel like with a lot of the dark country stuff, like I kind of felt like, all right, we put our sting on that one for sure, because once I figured out, like, it was kind of country, and I'm honestly not a country guy by any stretch. I'm definitely a rock guy, but I liked all that I like that old timey kind of, Western I like all that, like I like a Quentin Tarantino approach. Yeah. Like he commits, he puts his salt on it, and you're either in or you're out. I'm in, that's I'm waiting to see the next, I'm going to, go see the next movie. I'm all about it. You know what I mean? So, I realize it's a thing, but like I watched the Kill Bill. I thought it was, I got it. It totally makes sense to me. Like, so whatever he's selling, I'm buying.
That's right. And that's the approach you're trying to take with other people as well.
Yeah, I think so. In short, what we did with the catalog thing was kind of like that. Like I'm heavy-handed when I do stuff. Like I commit. Like, okay, I'm going for it, and I'm fine with it. People go, yeah, blues stuff is not for me. I'm good. We can be buddies. I get it, But at the end of the day, I'm very confident in what I do, and I mean, good luck to the next guy. It doesn't sound the way it sounds by accident. You know what I mean? So I'm very confident in that, but I also know what the limitations are. I get it. I'm realistic about it. And so I think with a lot of the dark country stuff, like, it was a good chance to really kind of define stuff. So to bring it full circle, like, I'm the guy that sits at home at night going, all right, how do I make this track even darker than it is? Like, because at some point I've done all the obvious. I've tuned the guitar down. All the guitars are baritones. I've done all the obvious. I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get my kids to sing about the devil. That'll be, because you've got the innocence of kids, and then you're putting the, the devil spin on it, and it's never, once again, the whole dark country. Like, I have it had done so well. They gave me my own kind of spin-off of it. I did the Devil's Cut, which was like my own little like production thing, which was cool, and it's never, it's not bad to be bad. It's that cool, like it's the bad guy wearing black. It's the guy with the dark cowboy hat. It's all the cool, I guess, the stuff that you would glorify without the actual bad stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does make sense. You know what?
Yeah, no one's looking to be to do negative stuff in the world. But let's be honest, man, dressing in black is cool.
It sure is,
or whatever. So so in essence, that's the stuff that you go for. It's the good-hearted, dastardly evilness. I'm all about that.
I like that.
I realize it's a very interesting time, and just with people, and and everybody's so offended by everything. It's ridiculous how bad it is out there. I've got no time for that stuff. I kind of feel like you just got to golden rule it and move on. But anyways, so to bring it full circle, like that's the stuff I would do. But then once I've done it, then I move on to the next thing. So the people that follow to kind of draft behind me, I'm basically giving you the roadmap to go print money.
Exactly.
But I can't do it twice. And so, and I think I hold myself to that standard because that's just, as we talked about, like, I can't stand living in the past. Like, there's nothing sadder. Like, I'm just going to be straight honest. I know I'm going to bum everybody out, but like when I see the old dudes rocking out, like, that's hard for me. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of, and I get it. And like I said, I'm not saying it's just my take on it, but like personally, like I was telling you, like the second someone says, "Hey man, we're at a NAMM show, let's jam some Hendrix," I literally can't find the door fast enough. You can see my eyes glaze over.
Where's the exit?
I'm just literally planning my exit strategy, how to politely excuse myself in the situation. And it's not that I don't want to jam with people. I love jamming with people. I'll jam with anybody, anytime. I've played with, I've jammed with Les Paul. I mean, dude, literally when I was a kid, he invited me down. So if I can take a beating from him, on the fretboard, trust me, there's no one else out there that I'm going to be intimidated to play with. I would get up right now and jam with Van Halen. I would love to do it because, I would just, what I do is what I do. I feel what I bring to tables. I wouldn't try and beat him at his own game. It's like even Dweezil and I think we got along just even musically because he approached the guitar so different than I did, and we both kind of appreciated that about each other. Like I would watch him play, like I would watch him, I'd be like, you realize that you're not tapping your foot on the 1 and the 3 or the 2 and the 4. You've got this weird polyrhythm going on.
Yeah.
He does. He just naturally, I don't know if he just got that from his dad, but if you ever get to watch him play, he literally, like I remember once when I was playing with Ginger Baker, when I first started playing, we rehearsed. The first time I played with him, it was in I think it was like SIR Studios in Manhattan. We played loud, like we were, it was loud. And I would play, we were so loud that you couldn't even really hear the drums at some point, It's kind of fun. Yeah. And I'm not sure why we were that loud, but, I think Jack was that loud. And if he was that loud, I just felt like I was matching him. So, and they were kind of old school that way. And my point was that I remember watching it, and I would have to, we would play so loud, I would have to watch the hi-hat. Like my trick is, because I would play loud, like even in Poison, like when I played that loud, except when we did outside gigs, I would play so loud, I would just watch the drummer. And so
timing.
They just kept the hi-hat either on, 2, 4,
mm-hmm.
And I would just basically visual. It was like keeping a visual metronome. I couldn't even technically, especially when you're playing like really big, like a lot of people don't realize that, but when you play really big places, like when you play like stadiums, you get the sound, the way it lays out is weird, especially when you play outside because all the sound goes out and doesn't necessarily come back sometimes.
No bounce back.
A lot of times you're just visually watching, you're watching drummers, and that was kind of the deal. So I remember playing and I would just watch drummers, and the crazy part is when I played with Ginger Baker, initially it would throw me because he always swung everything, so everything was on the 1 and 3, do cha, do cha, do cha, do cha, 1 and 2 and 3, and so we would play. And I just kept. I remember sometimes when I played loud, it would throw us off because I kept thinking it was on the down, but it wasn't. It was always on the up. And so it was interesting. In when I would watch Dweezil play, he wouldn't stick to any. He had this. It was repetitive, but I couldn't figure out. I would try and count it out, and I couldn't figure it out. So it's just interesting. But my point is, I think that's why we would get along, because we just had such different playing styles. And so my point is that I just don't, to repeat the same old thing or to do something that is just like, sometimes you see somebody do performance, you're like, okay, they killed it, they're done. It's never going to be done better. It's just time to move on. You know what I mean? Like I watched that lady at the Grammys. Can't think of her name. I want to say Carlisle. I can't think of her name. She did a song called "The Joke." Brandy Carlisle, I think.
Okay.
I apologize for messing her name. And I just wasn't aware of her. It wasn't my genre of music. And I watched her sing that song, and I was like, wow. And then I started going back, and I really liked that song. That song really just stood out. It was one of those moments. And I never watched the award shows, by the way, but my kids watch it sometimes because they like the clothes. I personally think giving somebody an award for art is pretty silly. But anyways, I watched, and my point is, I watched her do a version of that song on some live thing, and she sang it so well that I would have a hard time going out and singing it after that, because she'd done it. She climbed,
owned it.
Done. Yeah, it was done. Like, it was kind of like, you'll spend your life just chasing a ghost at that point. So for me, I bum out, and that's why even on Instagram, I kind of bum out. I was telling you, I have tubs and tubs of those old cool, all the guitar stuff, because in the day, I was just in a bunch of stuff, and I kept it all at some point because I figured, maybe it would be important. It was never important to me at the time, and it kind of really isn't important to me now, but I figured maybe as I just went through the journey of life, maybe it would become more important to me. Just like, pictures of the dogs that I don't have, I really, I miss them. And so having the pictures, or especially the videos, is so important to me now. And at the time, they weren't, because I had the dog right there. And
that's right. Yeah, but sometimes that's all you end up left with is photos, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. You just miss all the things, and especially with animals, because they're so kind by nature, and you really, it's especially as you just go through life and they're not there, you try and hold on to it. So my point is, I've got tons of stuff, but I don't even like posting that stuff, because it's kind of just depressing. It's like, wow, look at, it's like the guy talking about the high school days, and so much has moved on, and there's so much more out there that, that's, I find incredibly more exciting. Like, I get why a lot of our favorite artists are never going to put out more records, because it would just be like, what's that movie, The Wrestler, when he's selling his VHSs, like, I don't know. Just certain things I just can't watch. They just bum me out.
I know. You don't want to become that, for sure. There's a whole bunch of questions that have come up in the chat as well, too, and I apologize. I'm not going to get to all of them, but some of them were funneled through to Nocturnal Butterfly here. So a couple questions. One, I'm pretty sure I know the answer of. JJ's asking a question. Do you still bring out any of your old Samak guitars? And I think you've pretty much gotten rid of all those over the years, haven't you?
I don't have any. I don't have. I got rid of everything. At one point in my life, I got rid of every guitar I owned. I kept one, so I could go do sessions, and then I didn't have any of the basics. I didn't have like a Tele style or Strat or Les Paul, and I would just go up to Dweezil's, and he let me borrow his. So when I have a session, I just go, hey, can I borrow? He had I don't know, hundreds of them.
Of course.
And so he didn't care. He was always very generous. I'll tell you a funny story, just because I needed a Strat once. I was doing a record. For this catalog company, and I this is crazy when I think about it. I was doing 5 songs, and I had to do it in 3 days at a studio called Sonora Studios, and I had had Ross Hogarth actually help. He engineered that, and I had Josh Freese was playing drums. I remember that, and I think I was playing guitars, and I had to do some stuff, and I needed a Strat, and I had gotten rid of all my guitars because I was just kind of like, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I was kind of like, had already done the guitar thing. I'd been on all the magazines. I had kind of done it. And I was just kind of like, I didn't know what to do. I was never going to be Steve Vai. Like, I truly believe that guitar of that caliber is in his DNA. Like, I've met him, and he's so genuine about it, and he just lives and breathes it. I just think that's who he is. I think that's in his DNA. It's not in mine. You know what I mean? I'm just not that guy. Like, I just think guitar is cool. So I like cool guitar stuff. Like, and so I've got, like, for me, the running joke is like, party switch on, party switch off. Like, you'll play some stuff, and I'm like, ooh, I hear some early AC/DC with Bon Scott. I'm like, ooh, party switch on. You know what I mean?
There you go.
But I hear like, like I'll hear I'll hear like a Greta Van Fleet or Van Fleet, whatever it is, and I get it, but that's party switch off. You know what I mean? Like, and they could be the nicest guys. Like I said, I actually think they're good for business. So this isn't a good, bad, or ugly. I mean, props to you guys. Awesome, you're doing a great job.
Yeah, I dig them. I dig them.
But party switch off. You know what I mean? Yeah. Oh, perfect example. Van Halen with David Lee Roth, party switch on.
Yeah.
Sammy Hagar, great singer, would love to work with him, but party switch off. You know what I mean? So anyways, I don't know how I got the thing, but I had gotten rid of all my guitars. I got rid of all the plaid ones. Mm-hmm. I got everything. As a matter of fact, got rid of them all. I just didn't want them anymore. They just reminded me of something I didn't want to be. Right. I was done. It was over. It was a joke that I just didn't find funny anymore. Sorry. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And nothing wrong with it. Just wasn't. I definitely didn't feel genuine about it. So if I wasn't genuine about it, I didn't want to do it. So all the guitars were gone, which worked out fine. I kept one guitar and I needed a Strat. So I called up Weasel. I said, hey, I got to go do this thing. I need a Strat. And he says, yeah, okay, just come grab one. So I walk over there and he says, here, just take that one. So I just grabbed it. And he didn't even have a case for it, but I said, oh, I feel bad because it was one of his dad's old Strat.
Oh, geez.
I said, I should probably take a case of it. And he's like, okay. And so I just grabbed the case out of whatever. I just put one guitar, and then I just, and he just didn't care. And then, and I had the Strat, and that was the Strat I used. And then I forgot about that. And then I found a picture of me in the studio when I was talking to one of my friends, and it was not like it was his dad's Strat, it was the Hendrix Strat. Oh, and I forgot about that, because that's just, we didn't care. It was just a guitar. It was weird like that. But that's, so that's just the craziness of the guitars, how much guitars matter but don't matter in some weird way. Like it was literally, that's the Hendrix Strat that Hendrix burnt and gave to his dad, but his dad rocked forever. And then he rebuilt, and that was, I just needed a Strat and it had big frets. I needed one with big frets because I was doing a lot of bending. Yeah. So he's like, and so that's just the craziness of it all. And it also goes to show his generosity. Like he wasn't precious about it. He was like, yeah, hey, here you go, take it.
It's just a guitar.
Just a guitar.
I love that.
And now we just like the Rasta Strat.
Yeah, I know.
I'll tell you that story. You should have him on there. But
I've been talking to him for about a year about it. Hopefully, put in a good word for me.
Yeah. I think I did last time. He's busy. I mean, he's a man about town. But the crazy part about that guitar is that, one, it's heavy. And so I remember like picked up. I was like, oh man, it was like felt it weighed like what a Les Paul weighed or close to that. And I thought, but I remember originally it was just a guitar. It had it. We were playing it, and when I first picked it up, it sounded awful. I mean, it was just awful sounding. It was almost like out of phase. It didn't work. And we were looking at each other. I'm like, I don't know. And he takes it. Then it kicked in. And then it worked. It was just, I think,
bad wire, bad pot.
I think he just either bad connection or Ed probably sodded it with a butter knife. Who knows? I mean, you just never know with that. But that was the crazy. Then it sounded really good. It had some big pickup in there. You could see I remember it was, and it's just, I just remember laughing. Like it was just so funny. Like we were like party off.
Yeah, and then back on.
Yeah, it's funny. And so, but he'll tell you that story. I mean, he probably remembers it better than I do. But yeah, he's got funny stories that can go on.
I can't wait to hear. Well, speaking
you have him tell you the story when Ed came over and we heard. I want to say, I think it was what was their first record with Hagar? Was it Balance? No, it wasn't. It was Balance.
No, 5150. 5150
was the first one. What was the second one? Balance.
No, 5150 would be Oh You Wait 1-2.
What was Balance? Third?
I think so. No, okay. No, hang on. Carnal Knowledge, then Right Here, Right Now, Live, then Balance. So a few into it.
Okay, so yeah, which makes more sense. But you got to have him tell the story of when Ed came over. When we were just sitting there, and it was just another Friday night. I don't remember what we were doing. I just remember sitting there eating ice cream in his kitchen, and then Ed comes over, and Ed's like, I got to play you guys a song, and he proceeded to play the whole record in some car he had bought that was, it was like one of these one-off cars. I forget, I don't remember the model, but it was like some fancy car, and he bought it. It had some crazy stereo, and he heard it. It was so loud that at first it was like, okay, cool, this is great. I get to hear the new record, and I was excited. And then it went from, I was in the back, like like this, like trying to be cool. But like I had to put my fingers in my ears because it was so loud that my teeth hurt.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
you did tell me that story. That's hilarious. I'm glad people are hearing it now for the first time, possibly too.
I think please look back, and I had like my head like this, and I had my finger in my other ear because it was getting to the point where it was unpleasant.
Yeah, no matter who it is and how good it was, it's just still hurting.
God damn, that was loud. You know what I mean?
That's hilarious.
But just funny. He'll tell you the story on that one.
I'll get him on here eventually for sure. I haven't been talking to him for about a year and a half. I'll get him on here and we'll talk about some of your stories as well too. But since we're talking a little bit about guitar, and a couple of people have kind of some similar comments. Guitar Wayno is saying, "I see Blues brought the Koa Ernie Ball axe," and also Krellbauer is asking, "What's the guitar that you have in your hand?" So tell us a little bit about your relationship with Ernie Ball, and maybe show us that and give us a couple riffs as well again too.
Yeah, I mean, this is okay. So the deal with first of all, I've just got it set up. You guys can hear that, right?
Oh yeah, really good.
I gotta put strings because I knocked it out of tune because I hit too hard on that. New strings. So basically what it is this one. So this one's a Koa, or this is actually out of all the guitars. I know everybody is hot on this one here. This is always the famous one. This is the one that people lose it over.
Yeah.
This one's bananas. This is the very first guitar that Sterling ever gave me, believe it or not. Or the first one he made for me. I went to the factory and they gave me, before they made this one, he said, hey, he gave me a couple guitars to figure out. He says, hey, see what you like. You know, and I still have them. You know, the crazy part is I have every guitar that Ernie Ball ever gave me. I still have. How crazy is that?
That's cool.
Yeah, because it's just a different relationship. It's a crazy thing. But this one, which is the one everybody always asks about, this one is the original Gold Sparkle Albert Lee, and it's basically, I think it's an alder body, but I've got a maple top on it, kind of like a Les Paul, because I just needed more. I get nervous, like a lot of the older guitars, and it's not a good or bad thing, but like a lot of the early, like the stuff I did, like the early records with, they were all like basswood, and the problem with those sometimes, at least is that sometimes they just don't cut. They're kind of soft sounding, and it's really hard. If a guitar doesn't cut, I can't do anything with it. For my style of playing, like I'm the first one to admit, I'm a particular type of player, and certain things just really lend themselves in a positive way to my style, and other things don't. Other players can do it, so it's different horses for different courses. But a lot of the old guitars that people go crazy over, like they see the pictures and like, oh, those things are awesome. They looked great. They didn't always sound great, And then the problem, I'm going to be honest with people in general, is that usually when you so as you're sitting there on Instagram or whatever you're doing, and you're just looking at the guy going, oh my God, he's got 3,000, whatever. Know this, my experience, and I've owned more guitars than anybody should be allowed to own, is that just a lot does not equal good. As a matter of fact, usually my experience is guitars are very much like people. Think about how many people you've met in your lifetime, and how many people do you really consider to be true, real deal friends. It's not a ton.
No, I know, real small amount when you look at it.
Yeah, and think about as you've gone through life, and think about, I don't even know how many, is there billions and millions of people? I mean, however, there's so many people on this planet, and think about how many people you've really, truly made a real deal connection with. There's not a ton. Well, guitars are kind of like that. And so what I found is that you're either a quantity person or a quality person. And at least with gear, I'm a quality person. So a lot of the guitars I had, they looked awesome, and they probably in the right hands would do some real damage. But for me, a lot of times they just didn't work, or they didn't cut. And so like I've had guitars, if I get a guitar and it's kind of soft sounding, if it doesn't have any bark or any bite to it, I just can't do anything with it. I don't even want them. I literally would just give it away.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to serve my purpose. So what I would do, I at one point started putting maple tops on things just to get closer to like that Les Paul sound. Because I've always been kind of plagued by the fact that I play strats, which is meaning like I play the scale length of the Strat much better. Like Les Pauls are almost too easy. I hit too hard for them for some weird reason. Like I always have to kind of like adjust. I feel almost restrained by Les Pauls. They almost play too good, if that makes sense, by the shorter scale length or whatever. And they're always really, I hit hard, so the notes kind of choke out. Whereas a Strat, you can just whack on those things, but in general, the Strat, unless you're just going for a Stratocaster type sound, the Strats always have that thin, skinny sound. I never quite got along with them sonically, meaning for my go-to sound, let's say. Like, I always thought the sound of a Les Paul was business. Like, when I heard a Les Paul, Les Paul through a nice gained up amp that's a fun time right there.
Yeah.
For that, to me, it's always business. Like, I always felt like, okay, so single coils were never quite what I grabbed, but I always played the single coil scale length better. So basically, everything always came down to how do you make the Strat sound as close to a Les Paul as possible, and the answer is you can't.
Right.
They don't sound the same because they never quite have that plunky sound. But they always could. I could always get it to work. So what I would do is I started putting maple on the top because it kind of just gave it more bark, kind of more hit, more punch, kind of made it harder sounding, and that's my problem with a lot of the earlier, just the real early basswood bodies. They just never quite. They're never bad sounding, but they just never quite had enough character to them. So that started with this guitar, and this one's kind of got a bigger neck, but not this one. The first one's almost got, the best way I can explain it is it's kind of V'd. It feels like a broadcaster neck, not like the goofy reissue ones. Those are horrible. Which is another side pet peeve. Why do the companies? I don't get why. Every knockoff company can get the necks right. How come the main manufacturers can't get their necks right?
Like, making a reissue. Yeah.
I don't get it. How come when I go like in all fairness, not to put anybody on blast, but like the Gibson necks, they're always like stupidly big. Like they were never ever. I've owned more than my fair share of vintage guitars. They never ever had big dopey necks like that. Just big dumb shoulders that just tire your hands out. Or they make them too skinny and you can't bend them. So it's like they just never quite. I don't know why. I don't know why they could never figure it. Yet every other boutique company seems to get them just fine. So maybe that they got to up on that. But they've actually got a new guy working there that I'm excited about. This guy Mark that used to work over at Norm's Rare Guitars. He's a really nice guy.
Yeah.
Really, so I hope I'm sure if they let him do his thing, he'll probably make a best case scenario out of it. So I have high hopes for that there. Just for no other reason that it'd just be nice. I don't understand why. I understand you can never get. Like, for example, everybody just wants, like, let's just be honest, everybody just either wants the Les Paul from, like, just 3 years, 57, 58, 59, and 50s, and a 60. That's the only one no one, yes, I love the P91s, but no one cares about them, But, like, even those early 50 necks, my dad has a 55 gold top. It's got a great neck. Like, I don't care, big hands, small hands, if you play it, and it's just, wow, it's a comfortable, like, why can't that just be the necks? Like, I don't get it. There's not a single person that, I've never seen an improvement on them. So why can't they just make that the watermark? Why can't I walk into anywhere in the United States and rent one of those and have it be that neck?
Exactly. Have that comfort feeling, like a nice pair of pants or, comfortable socks and shoes.
I don't get it. And the same thing, honestly, I kind of felt the same thing for all the, like I've got an old Strat. And the reason why I bought the old Strat is because, it just, nothing is going to sound like that one thing. You know what I mean? And the neck is really comfortable to play. They should all be that. I don't get why they're not that. But
right.
anyways, to get on to more important matters, the whole Ernie Ball thing was that I started working with them years ago. And I had already done other guitar companies. I had worked with, I had my own model with Yamaha, I had my own model with Samak. I mean, I had already kind of seen the movie. And the reality was that and this is kind of the way it is, like, I remember going down to the factory and I had to sign like the first 20 guitars. So they had all 20 guitars lined out and I plugged them in and played them, and the reality was 2 of them were really stand out. I would say 4 of them probably were not very good at all. And then the rest of them were just like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, so that's kind of the way it kind of runs in general, like with stuff.
Agreed.
So, and the crazy part is, like, even when I had the custom shop making me guitars, like I've been really fortunate. Like, I've had some of the best, guitar makers, luthiers, whatever and I've been really fortunate. I mean, anybody with the Yamaha custom shop and the Ibanez custom shop and the Ernie Ball. I mean, geez. This is the top of the food chain here. There's no, these guys, that's it,
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, at one point, even back in the guy from Ibanez would eventually end up working over here. I mean, they would all just kind of, it really only came down to like, 10, 15 guys, and they just kind of rotated throughout the cycle, through
Exactly.
different companies. I've worked with them. They're amazing. And the reality is this, that, sometimes guitars are just hit or miss.
Mm-hmm.
It's not craftsman. You can tap, we tap the wood, we do all that. And sometimes you get a guitar and it's a screamer. You can't kill it if you try.
When you least expect it. When you least expect it.
It's usually the super ugly colored one or the
Yep.
one that has a totally crappy neck. It's always one of those, but it'll be the best sounding guitar of the planet, or it's never, once again, it's kind of like life, it's kind of like, it's never, it's never what you think it is. So get off Instagram, man. That's not life. It doesn't work that way.
Well, it's like three little puppies walking down the street. Maybe they're lost and found, and you got these two like dogs look like they come out of a dog show with bows in their hair and everything like that. And you got the one little mutt. That could be like this particular guitar. You think, okay, I'm not even going to give this one a second look. I mean, it becomes your lifelong best friend.
It's the one. It's not even a question. It's like, you go to, it's like, it's so funny. Like I could never, just, where I am in my life, I could never, ever, like, I could never buy an animal. I would only ever pull a dog out of the pound.
Yeah,
for sure.
Of course.
Question, like, never even fathom it, and it, that's just, my experiences, that's, my thing. But the crazy part is I also know now that, like, if I go to the pound looking for a German Shepherd, I guarantee I'll probably end up walking out with a Chihuahua. It's just, it's kind of like that's what you get out of life. It just gives you what it is. And it's kind of a metaphor for, like, guitars. Like, if I go in looking for a particular thing, I never find it. I end up, it's like I went looking for one thing, and then I end up falling short and then pulling out something else, but that ends up being the winner. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
That's just the way it is. And so if you're smart, if you'll heed one lesson from today, you'll realize that's just kind of, maybe look at what you got around you. Maybe you already got your ace guitar, but just because your hero doesn't play it doesn't mean it's not your guitar.
I agree.
That's one thing. Sorry, not to cut you off.
No, it's all good.
It's one thing I saw this one little clip of Tom Morello, and I don't have an opinion one way or another other than about him or any stuff, other than I will say I will always give someone credit that has defined themselves in a certain way, and he has. But the one thing I do got to say, the only thing I will definitely attest to is that he was doing like this gear thing, and he basically was explaining how he like had this guitar custom built from, and it was supposed to be the best thing ever, and it ended up not being a great guitar, and he kept trying to make it a great guitar, and finally he just said, you know what? I'm done. This is it. This is my guitar. It is what it is, and I'm just going to make it work. And regardless of anything, the only thing I can attest to is that I thought that was, I got that. That rung really true. I was like, bravo to you, Tom Morello, because he got it. He knew, he was a smart enough fellow to realize that's it. And he just made that guitar his guitar.
Stop trying and just do.
Just exactly. And I thought that was the thing. So, but, So in one breath, they're super important and they're tools, and then in one breath they're not. I will say I've been with Ernie Ball for such a long time, and when I say with them, I'm just there, like, meaning this, like Sterling and I and the whole the whole Ball family. It's like I've just gotten along with them. I always have since day one, and it's like there's no contract. There's no contract there. It's not like, you have to do this, or there's none of that. Like the deal which I told you before is he just said, hey, I'll make you a guitar. If you like it, play it. If you don't, then you don't have to play it. It's no big deal. But if you like it, play it. That was basically the deal. Don't ask for it if you're not going to use it.
That's right.
And he sent the guitar, and it just worked, and that was it. And that was that. That's that guitar. It's this guitar right here. That's the guitar I literally got, and I literally took on the road. It showed up on a Monday. And I think on Tuesday I left on the road and I took the guitar with me, and I've been just playing it as a live guitar ever since. It just works. But I've got tons of guitars. I play different things because to me they're just tools. So it's kind of like a spoon and a fork, and like, So for me, the way I approach stuff is like I'm almost like kind of like it's almost like there's like a dichotomy. Like I'm super precious about certain things and other things not in the least. It's weird. So for me. If it sounds good, I can use it if it's awesome or if it's awful. It's when it falls in the middle, I don't want it.
Yeah.
I can't I can't do that. So the crazy part is, Ernie, they made me that one guitar. There's actually two of them. They made me that gold guitar, and then I needed a backup because for playing live, I just needed a backup in case one snapped a string or if I had to do an alternate tuning.
Mm-hmm.
And so they made a second one which has a bigger neck. And at first, because I always wanted a bigger neck, but then for some reason I just would always gravitate towards this one guitar. And I can't explain it to you. It's not even my best sounding guitar. This is actually, out of all the Ernie balls I have, this is the best sounding Ernie ball I have, believe it or not. And it's a Koa. I think it's African mahogany. It's like an African mahogany in the back, and
Koa
it's
top.
Koa, and it's got a flame maple neck. And my only gripe with the guitar, which is hilarious, is that they blew it out so hard. I mean, look at the crazy flame on that thing. I mean, I've just never seen anything.
That's insane.
That's freakish, right? I
Yeah.
mean, look at it's almost like it's like a striped tiger shark or some weird thing.
Almost,
right? So
almost fake.
almost fake, right? It almost looks like, but like, how crazy is that, right?
Yeah.
And the running joke is they made it so good that it messes me up because the problem is it's so bombed out on the neck that I can't see where I am. So I only can use it in the studio because live, like, the second the lights go down, I just can't find, I'm just like lost on it, you know what I mean? But I'm afraid to swap the neck out because it just sounds so good. It's just got a good, it's just a good rock and roll guitar. It's just a great, and I went down there and Sterling had a small box 50 watt. They have a room, if you go down to San Luis Obispo, they have a room where I'm pretty sure they have every type of Fender amp ever made. It's crazy. There's got to be about, I don't know. It's been a while, but I remember being there. And I think there's like, 25 amps or 30 amps maybe. I don't know. It's just like they're all different kinds, all different eras. The tweeds, the black faces, the brown faces, the chocolate ones, the drip silver ones. I mean, everything, And Sterling also had a small box 50 watt, which I gravitated to. I'm good with those old school amps. I like the non-master volume amps the best, actually. They're harder to play, and live they're a nightmare, especially now with the way things are. You can't. I don't recommend them now live, but that's all. I mean, even back there, I mean, these are just a bunch of plexis I've got set up. So I played this, and so what I would do is. I would just go down there and play whatever guitar sounded good. If it didn't work for what I wanted, I just wouldn't take it because what am I going to do with it? So he had this one and he had a silver Stingray, and I just remember plugging it in. And those were good rock and rollers. And he's like, all right, and that's how I ended up with this one here. So it's got your typical kind of Axis neck. It's got it's just a completely bald stock guitar, but it's just a good sounding one, and that's the deal. I kind of think like if you have good source content, then everything falls in place. Meaning, if I have a really great sounding guitar, I can always mess it up and make it sound ratty and not. The problem is if I have just kind of a mediocre sound, that's kind of the glass ceiling right there. So for me, and like I said, I've got everything. I've got everything from and then I've got old vintage juniors. I mean you name it. It's within hand's grasp. P90s. We're doing P90. It doesn't. It's all. So for me, they're just different colors to draw with. Like right now, because I do such different projects. I'm doing kind of like an alt rock type thing, and so then I need for alt rock, I'm pulling out all right, you got to have one of these, because that's what alt rock does. You know what I mean? So they just kind of. They kind of force your hand a little bit in the creative process, for me at least. So for me, I'm not precious about any of the gear, but I think they're good jumping off points, meaning like, you're going to play different on a P bass than you would on a Stingray. A Stingray just has a different sound. It's more of a P bass is kind of old and sluggish and you have to kind of fight it. The Stingray, the second I play that thing, it just plays like it's a high performance machine. So I play different when I'm playing bass on my Stingrays than I do when I'm playing on, an old, I've got my dad's got a 62 P bass or something like that with a big old goofy neck on it. You got to fight it. And, so I just play differently and I would create a different line depending on how it is. It's kind of like, when you're on the farm and you're driving the truck and you try to take a left and it's like,
yeah, it's a process.
Woo!
Yeah. We're getting there.
Yeah, and you're sitting there bouncing and shaking, but that's part of the charm. It's kind of like, like, if I'm gonna drive an old motorcycle, I'm driving an old motorcycle. I'm not gonna sit there and, I would never get the new version of the old one. I would either get a new one or I would get an old one. I wouldn't, it's either a cat or a dog. It's not,
Yeah.
I don't quite know. But once again, that's my technique. And I'll be the first one to say that, I also reserve the right to completely go against that at any point in time, because sometimes I do. Sometimes, there are no rules. And I think that's what I like about it. That's why I feel it helps me feel like I don't have it's not a job. It's like, this is kind of what I do. So I'm into it. Otherwise, I could never put in the amount of time I put doing this, because the stuff I do is so time heavy that it's not even funny. If you're a 9-to-5er, you're not going to get the same result.
No, that's true. I just want to mention the time check here for you, because we're gonna try to do an hour for you tonight. We're actually almost approaching our 90-minute mark, so I want to let you go as soon, just so you can have some family time here as well too.
What time do you want to wrap this up, and we'll do it? What time? What do people normally do without burning people out?
Oh, we usually do 90 minutes here, and we're approaching 90, so we can do that for sure. But how about we do this? Go back and say hi to a bunch of people. I'm not going to be able to get a chance to ask all their questions, but I'll at least say hi to them for taking their time out. And when we come back, for some of the new people that didn't get a chance to see the fun interview we did with you last time, about a year and a couple months ago, you had a really, really funny story about David Lee Roth, and the fans here will appreciate that for sure.
Yeah.
So give us a condensed version of that, but we'll say hi to a whole bunch of people real fast and go through and say hi. So Terry's GG&G's here. I may have said that already. Bobby Clipper, Rick Hefner, Krell Bar. Let me see, scroll down. Carlo Santin, Rick Hefner, Jason Wade, Gussie Wells, Rich Stellman, Chlorine Baconskin. Let me see, scroll down, get some more names I haven't said hi to. Sean Pierce Johnson, a great YouTuber, is here as well. Scott Connor, Paulie D. Continue on, and I apologize greatly if I miss anybody. Vance Voltron. Let me see here. Get down a little bit. Quentin James again. Denny Allen. And I'm going to miss a few. Brad Miller. RJ the Mad One. Guitar Wayno, I mentioned your name, I think. Let me see here. Todd Flowers. We really appreciate all of you spending your Good Friday with us. This is great. Gary Holt. A good friend of mine from California. Let me see here. Let me see. Gary Holt actually introduced me to Gary Kramer. I spent some time down at Gary Kramer's place, or did a whole kind of documentary on the starting of Kramer, which was a lot of fun. Elner Freberg, Timothy DePaul. I may say these names twice. I may not say them at all. Michael Easter. Let me see here. Almost to the bottom of the chat, sort of. I'm horrible at the chat. And as I'm going through here, it was really funny. I got a text message from my better half, who's running the chat as well too, and she says, "Dude, you need a sparkle guitar." When you showed that sparkle guitar, and I said, "I have a sparkle guitar. I have a vintage Pacer Deluxe. It's sparkle red." She goes, "No, that's a sparkle guitar." Mike Bledsoe, Terry Himes, Todd Graff. I think we're almost there. Doing my best. Sorry, I'm missing. Ben 66. Okay, I think I got just about everybody, and I apologize greatly if I missed any. Motor City Axeman. So, yes. So, Elner knows the story a little bit. Says, held hostage at Dave's house. Let's do a condensed version of this one, because I want you to have some family time tonight.
Yeah.
Give us a shot.
And I forget, because I've told it, it's been told, but to sum it up, basically, at one point, David Lee Roth was going to do a blues record, and somehow my name got thrown in. I want to say, I think it was Rick Rubin that said, "Hey, you should call this guy Blues. Maybe he can do your blues record with you." And I don't know. And I don't know like what was going through. Once again, you'd have to ask. I don't know what was going through David Lee Roth's head, but if he was thought like a guy Blues would do a blues, I'm not sure how it was. But anyways, I was living in Connecticut at the time, and I know I didn't live out here then. And so I was staying. This was right before I moved to her. I was staying at my girlfriend at the time. I was about to move out, and I was kind of in between houses, and her parents were really nice, so they let me stay in there. They had a guest room, and this was Connecticut, so like everything had like the tchotchkes and the doilies, and this house is our home, and all these like things written in like stitching. It was like something out of Fargo. It was awesome. But they were just the nicest people. They were the Borzillos, and they were very, very cool. They were always very nice to me. I've always really had a soft spot for them. And they actually were so cool that they let me keep all my gear in their like basement. So can you imagine walking to your basement and there's like road cases, stacked up guitars, and they were cool. And so they let me stay there. And I remember they had, their house was so nice. They kept it so like pristine that I would sleep in the guest room, and I would sleep like this in the bed, like so I wouldn't mess the pillows up and stuff like that, because I just didn't want to like overstay my welcome. But anyways, the mom, I came home from, and I was kind of I was kind of just busy during the day doing stuff, working, whatever, trying to make moves or whatever was happening. And so I come home and she says, "Oh, there's a message for you." And I said, "Okay, and who's it from?" And she goes, she looks at it and she's like, this was, she wrote it on a sticky. And this was like, this was like right around, maybe there was like answering machines, but this was like the old phone with the coily cord and all that stuff. This was like straight, right out of Stranger Things, basically. So she puts her glasses on, because of course she took the message maybe an hour earlier, but she had forgotten.
Yeah.
I believe it's from a Mr. David Roth. David Roth.
David Roth.
It sounds like someone works at an accountant. I'm like, an accountant? Like, I don't know. It didn't make sense.
Yeah.
So David Roth, and she's like, "Yes, Mr. David Roth." I'm like, did he say what it's in regards to? And she looks again, and she says, "Yes." I said, what is it? And she goes, "It's in regards to fame and fortune."
Oh my God, that's totally David Lee Roth.
And so that's when I knew. I was like, okay,
David Lee Roth.
And at first I thought it was kind of a setup. I figured maybe somebody was, but I figured no, none of my friends are that clever. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I had to call at a certain time. And so of course, I call, and he says, "Call tomorrow at 1:00 California time." And of course I'm sitting there, I call, and sure enough, man, I pick up the phone, and there, I knew instantly. You could tell that voice. "Hi, how you doing?" It's like instantly. It was like, here we go.
Yeah.
And so in essence, he says, "Hey, come out to California. Let's have a meeting." And I said, "All right." So, anyways, my parents had just moved out to Cal. They moved out. I was going to finish it's a long, involved story, but I was going to move out. My parents came out. I went to my parents and said, "Hey, I came back from a NAMM show, and I'm going, I'm so done with Connecticut. Why would I stay here when I can go out to California? Like, the women look great. The weather's amazing, and this was still the heyday of rock and roll. So it was like, it was a party. But anyways, so I come out to California, and I remember I borrowed my mom's car. She had a red Mazda Miata. Convertible, so there I am, like it's like a Tic Tac with a motor. It's just rough, So I drive out. He gives me the address. The address is somewhere out in Pasadena, and so I'm driving through like the old part of Pasadena, not Old Town Pasadena, but the old part of Pasadena, and like it's like it's like old. It's almost like like Gone with the Wind style, like estates. It's weird. So I pull up, and there's like this huge estate, and it's like got these tall, like 13-foot like stone walls, and I'm like, God, it was weird. And of course the thing opens up, and then with the little Mazda Miata, turn it off. And his assistant came, this lady, very nice lady, came out and says, "Oh, Dave's down by the pool." So I walked down, and it's like, I guess that was the Van Halen, that was the house, that was the Roth,
the photo shoot.
Estate. Yeah, the Roth house that I guess his dad was a doctor, and that was the place. That was like where they rehearsed. I didn't realize any of that at the time. Didn't really care, but it was like, But anyways, I was just taken back because it felt like a Gone with the Wind. Like it was a lot of foliage. It was almost like a botanical gardens type thing. And it was kind of an older house. And I go down, I park, and I'm walking. I'm down through the twisting and turning through the trees and the vines. At least it felt like that. And sure enough, there in like this old Hollywood style pool, there's David Lee Roth in a tracksuit. And I'm like, what the fudge is going on? Like, that was just it was just one of those moments where I'm like, this is kind of cool and weird. And keep in mind, I was a Van Halen head from back in the day. So this is definitely where I wanted to be. And I definitely wanted, this was after the VI. And I want to,
After Eamon Smile or Skyscraper?
After Eamon Style, definitely after Eamon Smile, definitely after Skyscraper. I don't know if this was pre-Becker or post-Becker. I just can't remember.
Right.
It could be pre. I don't remember. Could be post. You have to check. Whatever. He ended up doing the record. He did some weird kind of like crazy blues record that just never quite got traction. But and clearly I didn't get the gig. But the point is that I was there, and I was like, all right, I can make something of this. So anyways, so the point of this long-winded story about the Mazda Miata and the big car with, the big doors and the old Pasadena was that, and the lady and, my girlfriend's mom telling me the story was that it basically was a 3-hour meeting that I had with David Lee Roth. Right now, keep in mind, I am hyped to be there. You know, I mean, I'm excited. I'm you know, the hair is poofed up. Let's do this. You know, like, so it turned into a 3-hour meeting. And the best way I can tell you is this. It was 3 hours. The first hour was by far the funniest hour I have spent on this planet. My sides hurt from laughing. He had me. I mean, it was just he and I. We were one-on-one, and he was. I mean, he was funny and articulate and sharp. And I mean, I laughed to the point where I might even have snorted at one point. Like, it was just like, you know, he was killing it. I mean, he was on fire. You know. And it was just going, and the jokes were flowing, and I was just like, I get it. Then there was hour 2, and hour 2 was kind of like, okay, this is cool, but I think I heard that joke.
Yeah, a couple times, maybe once or twice.
Yeah, it's kind of like, okay, like it kind of rubbed off a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
Then there was hour 3, and hour 3 was, holy shit, I'm being held hostage by David Lee Roth. Like, it was painful. Like, I couldn't get out of there. Like, I just kept, it was kind of like listening to the Van Halen was so loud in the back of the car. Maybe that's a theme with those guys. I didn't think about it till now, but like literally, and I'm not trying to like talk in a disparaging way. I'm just trying to tell the story so that maybe somebody will, maybe the Meet Your Heroes.
Keep it real.
Yeah. Woo! And that was a rough. It was like it turned into Apocalypse Now. Like, it was rough, man. That third hour, I just couldn't. I was like, I got to get out of here. You know what I mean? And whatever. But I will say, he was pleasant and nice and professional at the whole time, and he was funny and he was a gentleman. And there's nothing negative to say other than, man, I really wish I quit after that. I wish I could have bugged out after that first hour. Then it would have been a monumental experience. It just kind of, the pendulum swung both ways, you know. So
don't you wish maybe your mom had pulled up in that little Tic Tac with the motor, like you said, and honked a horn? Come on, son, it's time to go.
Time to go. And I'm like, later, Dave. I'm out, dude. Great story, you know. And I did not get the job. I you know, I sent in stuff, and I don't think he was. I personally was not feeling a blues record. I was like, dude, dust that stuff. Let's just get back to rocking, you know, like that was, and I think he kind of knew that was, and like when I sent the stuff in, I was like, I know you want a blues record, but dude, if we could just steer the ship back over here, you know, and that's fine. I was fine with not getting it, because the reality was, you know, I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't going to do a blues record with David Lee Roth any justice, in all fairness. So, you know, and I think he ended up making it with someone else, and I don't know with who. I apologize. I should probably know. But it's funny. I'll also give a shout out to my friend Nick Nolan.
Oh, I know Nick very well. Holy cow!
He talk about a talented guy. I mean, man, geez, he's super sweet guy. But he at one point had done some work with David Lee Roth too. So it was funny. He had told a version kind of similar story. You got to ask him about his David Lee Roth experience. But it's just funny that I ran into him later, because he's also a composer that worked with Extreme, and we just got along really well. And he's just such a nice guy. You meet him, and you're like, this guy needs to be on my friend list. You know what I mean? He's just that guy. And so it's just a funny story that he's got some pretty great David Lee Roth stories to tell, which I won't tell because I don't want to talk out of school. But
he's good.
It's got some sweet ones, definitely. But yeah, so that is my David Lee Roth story, and
I love that.
You know, but yeah, so it's just kind of stories of life. But yeah, pretty good. But I was grateful to have the experience.
I guess so. I just want to say one thing real quick, because I haven't had the name pop up on the show. I don't think ever. Maybe I've mentioned it once, but Nick Nolan. I'm really glad you mentioned that, because it's a great blast from the past. And I got to, Nick Nolan had some great credits to his name too, because he won the GI, one of the scholarships, the Eddie Van Halen scholarship across the whole world. He got handpicked by Eddie Van Halen to that one scholarship. But him and I worked on a project indirectly. He was with a band. He was kind of hired to oversee and put the band together, and he was actually in the band, Jetpack Heroes. Do you remember that band?
Very briefly.
Yeah, they were kind of one of these before, like the bands were engineered like they are today, you know, like the boy bands and stuff like that. Not that they were a boy band, but the engineered bands. Well, he was kind of brought in to engineer this band and put it together. And then when they got into the multimedia aspect of it, I've always been in web design, so I built the band's website, And here comes multimedia producer James Lomenzo, who ended up playing with Roth and obviously White Line, stuff like that. So James Lomenzo and I got to be friends by working through Nick and this project. So what a small world, and it's so cool to hear that name again.
Yeah, well, he's done very well for him. You should get him on this show. He's
I
done
will.
Very well for himself. I think he's doing the whole Curious George series.
Yeah, he's done and the Land Before Time or whatever.
Yeah, oh no, he's doing. Yeah, he's one of these guys that has a skill. He's another one of these guys where it's kind of like he'll do some stuff, and I'm like, got it. Can't do it, but got it. Like,
yes, I know.
He can talk about orchestration and stuff, and and it's like he was. We did a lot of we just ended up. I would always notice his stuff because I would put stuff in the Extreme catalog. He would put stuff in the Extreme catalog, and then it would come out, and you'd always check to see where you got placed, and check the mastering and see how everything is. And so you kind of would listen to see how it sits in conjunction with the rest of the record, and it becomes pretty obvious, who's really putting out the standout product.
Yeah.
And after a while, I just remember kept seeing Nick Nolan, and after a while, and then we had Extreme had a get together where they had like a dinner where I met him and I said, hey man, I've been loosely just keeping an eye on your stuff, and it always on its own accord pops out as something that's really, really strong. And he says, oh, I felt the same about yours, and we just genuinely got along. And so I think I talked to him. I think I had dinner with him about maybe a month ago,
Nice.
6 weeks, something like that. You should definitely.
I'll reach out to him. I'll tell him we've had you on a couple of times, so he'll enjoy it.
Yeah, and like I said, he's got a lot to share on a lot of different levels, and he's just, like I said, I can't say enough good things about him. I mean, there's, it's funny. We were even talking about it's interesting now, and we'll leave with this or however you want to do it.
Sure.
I don't know if you get booted off by a certain time or whatever.
Oh no, it's okay.
But like you and I were talking about the Instagram generation, which is an interesting thing now because I got to say, in general, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm just a fan of music. That's really what it is. There's no if you're making it and it's great, then I'm in. If I'm making it, it's great. So I don't care. I don't feel like this. Like, I don't quite get the ego thing with a lot of people. Like I as we talked about before, I think a lot of, and I'm not going to say all of them, but I will say I've definitely run across certain musicians that are, the ego definitely comes across as very self-insecure, if that makes sense. And I've run across other musicians that are just so gangster. They're just so cool. They don't have no ego, almost like anti-ego. So I've seen both instances, but it's interesting. And I had this talk with Nick at one point about the whole, like, the way things are now. I mean, the way, the whole next generation of guitar, where it's going, how it is, how social media affects it, and how it's amazing to like learn stuff. So the pro is that you learn things and you can learn things properly, which is great, or at least, fairly properly. The downside is then you're out on the happy accidents. And so I think some of my best stuff, or at least what I consider my best stuff, was kind of like, I was kind of shooting for this, maybe fell short, and then it ended up becoming something else. And that something else, kind of like as we just talked with the guitars, you're kind of going for this, but you end up with that, and that becomes your thing. Well, it may be falling short, maybe it's not falling short, but I think by having everything so mapped out and having everything so available, you get less of the, I'm just going to go figure it out. You know what I mean? Or I'm like, the whole Van Halen Variac, didn't he? I mean, I'm sure he was just trying to find an end to the means, which is how do, this thing's loud and I'm blowing up amps. I mean, we can talk gear in that regard for hours. I mean, the way, just like, I don't have it here, but I should actually have shown you my dad's Dirty Boy amp, the original one he built me. That's a whole thing. That would make a good, interesting thing. Like, that has a Variac built in it.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that one, as we talked before, came from having two amps. Like, you'll notice there's two amps. I got two Plexis, but as I said before, every now and then I'll use one as a preamp and one as a power section. All you have to do is, if you know how to tap into them out, that's why you typically see me with two.
You slave them.
Yep. Not even necessarily slave. Sometimes I just use one.
Yep.
Slave is when you bang it down to a low line level and then bump it back up. A lot of times it alters the equation. What I've done sometimes is which is kind of the whole Dirty Boy thing, is that I would use two amps, but one was a preamp and one was a power amp. But what I would do is I would control the voltage in the power amp differently than I would the preamp, if that makes sense.
No, I got you.
That's why I needed two. So a lot of times, not necessarily with these are just 2 small box 50s, but
Yeah.
one's my dad's, actually, believe it or not. Like, how crazy is that? My dad's like, that's my dad's small box 50. It sounds better than mine for some reason. Damn it. But anyways, what I would do is I would even pull the power tubes. So on the one I used the preamp, I would pull the power tubes out. I would only keep the preamp tubes in it,
Okay.
And it was just a preamp. And so my whole point is that way I could keep that one running healthy. And then the one that was just the power section, I would pull the 2 preamp tubes out. I had to keep one in, I think, if I remember correctly, because one was the phase inverter or whatever it was there. But I would do that, and that way I wouldn't bomb them out. I wouldn't sit there and blow one out, and so that's how. And then I would just variac only the power section.
Gotcha.
That way I could keep the preamp really healthy, and only the power section would go down. That way, because what would happen when I would variac stuff, I could never figure out how Ed would do it, because every time I took an old amp, like if I took a 100-watt Marshall and dumped it down, it got thinner. I didn't like it. I was like, yes, it would get kind of that skittly, but it almost sounded like, I don't know, it felt almost like that scratchy high end. It never worked for me, So what I would do is I liked what the power section would do. I liked that spongier feel, and I liked the fact that it wouldn't bomb out all my speakers, because I'll be honest with you, I just got tired of replacing those 25 watts.
I can imagine.
They got expensive after a while. I just kept, I would always run into one cabinet, because they would drive the one cabinet harder. Whenever I did 2 cabinets, it would just be way too loud.
Yeah.
And it would be cleaner, so they wouldn't break up as much. And I was trying to get them to break up. As a matter of fact, I used to keep moving blankets. I did all this stupid stuff, But anyways, so my point is that now, with the way things are so precise and everything is digital and it's all so accurate, you lose part of the charm. You lose that, the big turn when you're turning left.
Yeah.
Like, would Stevie Wonder have written Superstition without a clavinet? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe would it have been the same? I don't know. Would Edgar Winter doing Frankenstein not on an arc? You play that on a Rhodes, it doesn't sound the same. So at some point, the gear, it's almost like, I don't know, it's kind of like a metaphor for like life and like money. Like, money is really not important unless you don't have it, and then it's everything.
Yeah.
So if you can get to a point where you have what you need, even if you have an abundance, but you don't necessarily have to. It doesn't have to be the driving force. It's like, now that I have kids, you try and explain to them. It's like, well, watch your money, kids, because everybody else will be. You know what I mean?
That's right.
You have to kind of let them know how serious it is, but at the same time, you don't pick your friends based on it. You don't pick someone you're going to share your life with based on it. It's a tool to help facilitate. Another thing I realized too is, like, I watch these comedy specials, and the comedians that are really good are the ones that can articulate what I'm trying to say. And I realize I kind of sound like Elmer Fudd, and I talk for 40 minutes to get the point across that somebody can say in like 3 lines.
I know, I'm the same way.
Still, yeah, it's kind of, so I apologize if you guys are getting the long,
it's okay. It's okay.
Long road to the supermarket, but it is what it is. But anyways, so it's interesting with the whole Instagram, how everybody is exceptionally good. I mean, I got to be honest. I see people do stuff that's almost freakish at times. I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that there's all these little subcultures of guitar. These guys playing, the headless guitars with the 8 strings and the fan frets. I mean, I think that's great. It's not for me, but it's great that they're doing that, and it's great that they can have such technical prowess. I think, like, as we talked about, the only thing I'm going to say, my caveat to that, as much as I applaud everybody for doing that, and I'm a fan on a certain level. I'm a fan of anything that sounds cool. I'm a fan of music. I love it. I love it all. I love even the crappy stuff I like. You know what I mean? But once again, I'm not saying party switches on.
No, I know.
Like, there's just something, there's something about a dude that's got an old guitar and it's kind of cool and it's beat up but it's not like artificially beat up, and it's just cool. It doesn't necessarily play in tune, but that's the charm. The second it plays in tune, it's not the charm anymore. You know what I mean? For me, it's just trying to go through life, trying to make sure the party switch goes on. You know what I mean?
agree.
And it gets harder because after a while you just start losing. You get immune to it, and so you're like, yeah, I've done that. I've seen that. Like I said, the first hour with David Lee Roth was awesome. Third hour, not so much. And so you kind of, as you go through life, it's chasing that first hour of David Lee Roth.
Agreed. I know, and you're always on that treadmill trying to get there. I'll say two things in closing here, very briefly on both. Number one, some advice I'll share to the Instagram generation of musicians out there. Not that I have all-knowing burrito or anything like that when it comes to giving musical advice, but one thing I think it is good advice is the fact that some of these players out there are the younger generation where they haven't experienced anything other than being in front of the camera at home, either on their couch, their sofa, their bed, or their studio, whatever they have. They haven't played with real musicians. Get out and go to an open mic night, jam. Just go out and have some fun. Get on a real stage, just once or twice to experience that, because being that comfort zone of having all the technology at your home, it's a different world when you're playing with other musicians, live musicians, standing up. So I do recommend that as something to do, to improve your game, and keep doing your Instagram videos, of course. But that's some extra skills that you can, do to improve. And number two, just a nod to your dad and the Dirty Boy pedals and the things that, he's been doing a while back, too. We had a mutual friend that you know very well, Danny Gomez. He was on the show.
Oh, yeah. He's a super nice guy.
Yeah. Very, very nice. Met him again at NAMM. We did some stuff at his Orange booth.
He's a great player. I was walking down the aisle and he was playing that. I was like, this guy's really good. I mean, once again, it seems like everybody's good these days. It's bumming me out.
Well, you've had a lot to do that. You're one of many people out there that were an influence on all of us. So you have some credit in that game as well, too. But yeah, Danny was on and we talked heavily about, the building the replica basically of your amp in a pedal format. So that was very cool. I wanted to let you know that he was on the show, and you can catch it on the channel. Guy.
It's funny. I have one of those. We actually bought one, believe it or not. They're really good. I mean, I gotta say, it's really. I played one at the show, And listen, I've had so much gear. It's almost like it gets to the point where. Think of it like this: when you go to the movie theater and you already know how it's going to end.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's how it feels like. Because I've just, at some point you're just, it's just, they're just wheels. They roll. They do what they do, and you can, shift them in certain ways. But anyways, I went there and my dad, we played it, and it sounded really good. Like I was pretty pleasantly taken back that some guy that I had never met, who had never played the amp, got it that accurate. I mean, it's nothing is like that. Here's a weird thing. That amp has got its own weird folklore to it. I don't know if it's just I think musicians just do that weird thing where
sure.
It's a Dumble it's made with. I'm like, I've played about 12 Dumbles, and it's like I get what they are and I get what they aren't. I mean, I get it. I'm not, listen, if you'll pay that for them, then all the power to you. Personally, not me. You know what I mean? It's like I could definitely scratch that itch many different ways. But my point is that the weird thing is he made because originally he made a couple amps. I don't know how many's out there. I don't know if he knows. I mean, I think he had made them. There was this one guy at this music store called Black Market Music, and this guy at the time was he was super into that amp, and he would commission them to make them. My dad made a couple. I don't remember how many, but and people have tried to copy it. But this one amp, there's one. It's the very first one, the only one that I've ever had is this one, which I have. I have it in the other room. It's just it thing weighs about 90 pounds, man. It's like it's a commitment. It's heavy.
Mm-hmm.
But that one particular amp just does a particular thing, and everybody's tried to copy it. Nobody can copy that one amp, and I can't figure out what it is. I don't know. We've been a part of it 3,000 times. He literally built it on the kitchen table. I don't know. It's just there's something about that one amp. It's a real particular. The best way I can explain to you is it's kind of like if a Vox and a Marshall had a baby.
Oh wow, interesting.
It's weird. It's a multi-channel amp. Although I never ever used. I don't think I've ever used the channel on one side. At least I don't remember doing it.
Yeah. And
it's got one side, and the side I use is kind of like technically it's the non-master volume side. I think it's been a minute. I mean, I'll be honest. Yeah, I think it's the non-master, but it's got a boost channel.
Okay.
And the boost channel does this other thing. Like when you kick it on, it's like, whoosh, and the best way I can explain it is it's very crude. It's very much like it's not a spoon. It's not a shovel. It's like a backhoe, if that makes sense. It would be like getting in a Formula One race car to go to 7-Eleven to get a gallon of milk.
Yeah, boom. Yeah.
But it's really easy to play. It's hard to explain. It's very kind of honky sounding.
Yeah.
And it's almost like it's almost the best way to explain it is it's kind of it's naturally shelved. It's naturally shelved on the lows and naturally shelved on the highs. So it just sits kind of somewhere in the mid. So it has a very particular personality, and it has a very kind of gritty, footprint to it, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And the crazy part about that is he did these things where, this is how crazy it is. It's a dual rectifier amplifier. Yeah, it's got 2 rectifiers in it, because I know when I pick it up, they clink together.
Yeah.
So it's a dual rectifier. It's 100 watts, but I think it's more like 120. It's really loud. And he made, the thing about it is he made the transformers. I personally think the secret's in the transformers. That's my guess. Because everybody's tried to knock it off, and there's nothing does that what that one particular one amp does. Everybody's looked through it and can't figure out what it is. But anyways, he made the transformers and he overmade them. So the best way I could explain it was like, his theory was that, because his theory was he was going to make something that was just unto itself. And his theory is like, well, if I'm using everybody else's parts, then I'm kind of
making everybody else's sound.
Yeah, it's kind of like, how can I create a new car when I'm using an already existing car frame? It doesn't make any sense, because he's a particular type of fellow, and he just thinks very outlaw that way, if that makes sense. Like, have you ever met people that don't have a buffer?
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. You know what I mean? So he's very point A to point B, meaning he'll just go from point A to point B because that's the most logistic sense. So for him, this is how that amp came up. He literally was like, I had all these old amps because that was just what I had, and that's probably all we could afford now that I think about it. I mean, we would get some new stuff, but we just had to work with what we have. And of course, I kept bombing them out because I would play hard on them. And let's be honest, the way I would play is I would just take them and turn them up and throw blankets over them because they were just too loud and they wouldn't distort. So you're taking a Marshall, you're running it wide open, you got blankets over it. Of course, it's just a matter of minutes before it just bombs out. Just kept, and then we didn't know how to fix them, so we'd have to go to the local repair guy in Connecticut, and they would hold us hostage. Well, if you leave it there, maybe I'll get to it. And we only had, it's like owning one pair of glasses. It's like I can't leave my glasses with you because then I can't see.
That's right.
So he just got tired of being kind of held hostage by the situation. So he just was like, well, I'll just figure it out myself. And that's kind of what he did. So we would just start, tearing apart the old stuff, and that's how we did it. And so, in short, I remember he was telling me when he made the transformers, he overmade them that because his theory is he wanted to get that information out there. Kind of like, think of it like water flow. He wanted massive tubes because he knew I was just going to sit there and beat on the thing, And so he says, I remember when I made the transformer, and what he did, he drove out, he found some guy that was like 8 hours away that lived out in the desert that wrote a book about transformers. So he would literally drove out, track this. This was like, this was all pre-internet. This was none of this. I mean, or if it was, it wasn't like it is now. That's for sure. I mean, no. I'd have to check I don't know when did that haircut record come out? I mean, I don't think, it wasn't like it was now. That's for sure. And so he drove out 8 hours, met some guy in the desert, and bought these books. He paid the guy like $150, some old guy that made these, and that's how he just read about transformers. And he made his own transformers. And I remember him telling me when he made that first amp, when he made the transformers, he took a dead blow hammer that was had a rubber mallet head, and he couldn't get the covers on them because he'd made the wires so heavy. And he interleaved, and he explained it to me. And so he sat there with a hammer, and he beat on the wires so he could put the bell housing.
Oh my goodness!
Transformers, that's how banana pants he is. He just didn't care. I'm like, is that the thing to do? Wouldn't that cause him to catch on fire? He's like, I didn't care. Yeah. And so he just, that's how crazy that amp is. And so
you can't duplicate that because you just can't.
You ain't gonna get Mercury Magnetics to do that one, man. You know what I mean? So so that's the crazy thing about that amp, and that and so that amp, the best way I can explain it is it's very it sounds like a Marshall and Vox. It has when you do it the right way, it can have like a super tight low end.
Yeah, and
it can actually have a ton of gain, and then you can variac it, but it's kind of a one trick pony. But man, it's a good trick. You know what I mean? That's the story with that amp. It's very signature sounding. Like the second you play it, like, got it. And then he was cool. What he did is he put because I used to jam the two. I used to make the preamp and the power amp. He made it where you could just plug right into the power amp, so I could run any preamp
right into it.
I remember when I was, I would record and I would just run preamps into it. So if I wanted to run whatever amp X or whatever it was, I could run it through the power section. I could variac it, and I could just do all that cool stuff. So anyways, that's a
great backstory on that thing, man. Well, listen, we're hitting 11 o'clock here. I want to say thank you to everyone that took their time out this evening on Good Friday. And if you and your family celebrate Easter, we hope you have a wonderful Easter weekend. And be safe out there if you're going out for dinner or having family over, those kind of things. And I hope everyone does enjoy it. I want to thank you again, Blues, for taking your time out, having a wonderful evening. It's been great. It's been a year and 2 months. I checked today how long ago it was. It seems like a long time ago. But it's nice to have you back.
It was a beard ago.
It was a beard ago. I know. But very, very nice. And I'll reach out to your pal, Dweezil, and get him on here very soon as well, too. Get Nick on the show as well, too. It'll have lots of fun. So we're going to let everybody go. And thank you so very, very much. I want to wish you a fantastic rest of 2019. We've still got lots of time in 2019, but I know you're going to be up to some great things. Wishing you the very best.
Cool.
Don't go anywhere. I'm going to say goodbye to you off the air. But everybody, I'm going to say goodbye to you now. Thank you so very, very much. And we will see you next time right here, same time, same channel, all that good stuff. If you're new here and haven't yet subscribed, please do so right now. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell, turn on post notifications to let you know when we do upload more content like this. And if you haven't subscribed, like I say, it's a good time to do it now. And I will work very hard to keep you as a subscriber. Check out all of Blues information down in the description down below. All kinds of good stuff. Some new stuff that you maybe haven't seen. All kinds of great stuff. And until next time, cheers.
Hey, you're still here? Eric Jr. here, reminding you to check out our full lineup of quality merch. Available right now in the Broadstash Boutique. Quality products and fast shipping. Visit broadstash.com today.
I am now on Patreon. If you enjoy my content and wish to support my channel and what I do, then please check out my Patreon page at patreon.com/evhgeartv. Your support assures the continued growth of this channel and a fun community in which to share our love for Van Halen, music gear, and much more.
My name is Eric and I'm playing Wolfgang guitar.
Video production services provided by Design39 Media. Visit design39media.com for all your website, photography, and video production needs. Microphones for EVH and Gear TV are provided by Rode Microphones, and official Van Halen merchandise is provided by vanhalenstore.com.